Hello and welcome to my tutorial on Bind name service. Today we'll install Bind on our Ubuntu server. Currently I do not have it installed, so we're going to start from scratch, do a basic configuration and go from there. As you can see, I'm currently logged in as root. First thing we'll have to do is install the service. We'll do that by doing a real quick apt-get install bind 9. So it'll go ahead and do its thing. And first thing that we'll have to do, even before Bind will start, is we need to assign our IP address statically and have our Ubuntu server as its own DNS server. We'll do that by doing a nano on Etsy network interfaces. As you can see, I've currently already set mine as static. So I've got my DNS name servers. Make sure you have an S at the end, otherwise it will not work, as my local IP address. So we'll get out of there and we'll start configuring our Bind server. We'll go into the directory. As you can see, there's a few files already in the directory. The first one that we want to configure is the name.conf.options file. I'll show you why that's important here real quick. This here has our forwarders option. If we do not put every single website on the internet in our Bind service, the server will be pretty much useless. So we need to tell our server if it doesn't have a certain website or host locally, it will point then to a forwarder. So we'll put 2 here, quad 8, 8.8.8.8, that's Google's main DNS server. Then their backup is 8.8.4.4. As you can see, I've put semicolons at the end of both IP addresses here. If you miss a semicolon, your server will not work. Alright, so we went ahead and set up our forwarder. The next thing that we want to configure is a host. So for example, well, let's go into the file first. We'll do a nano on name.conf.local. Here is where we'll tell our Bind server the parameters of each host that we tell it. So for example, we'll do a zone ubuntu.local. We'll have it as the master server, and as you can see, I've ended type master with a semicolon. Make sure you do not forget that, otherwise, like I've said, your server will not work. And then we'll tell Bind where the configuration file for ubuntu.local is stored. So in this case, I mean, you can name it anything, but if you have to troubleshoot or do some cleaning up in your directories, you want to know what the file is. So in this case, we'll do a database on ubuntu.local. Also ended with a semicolon. And then we'll end this configuration here. So we've got our basic zone. We'll save this here. And like I've said, Bind already put in a few files that will help us with our future configuration. So for one of them here, db.empty, it's got very basic details and the syntax of the file. So we're going to copy db.empty to db.ubuntu.local. And there's our file. So we'll go ahead and edit it so that it meets what we need it to do. We'll put our host here. As you can see, there's a period at the end. That means that it's a fully qualified domain name. So this does not get put before ubuntu.local. If you didn't have the period here, it would think that the server of authority is ubuntu.local.ubuntu.local. With the period here, the server of authority is just ubuntu.local. This over here is the actually it's an email address of if there's an issue with the host. This is who would be emailed. Even though there's a period here and not an @ symbol, because normally, an email would be root at localhost. In this case, for Bind's configuration, it's root.localhost. And these are some parameters that will tell the whoever queries for ubuntu.local, it'll let them know when the record will expire. The serial number is pretty much for us humans. If we change a record in here, we can change this to number 2, and that will just let us know that this is the second time the host here has been edited. First record that we'll put in here is an A record that will translate ubuntu.local into an IP address. Alright, and then we obviously need our name server locally, so we'll go ahead and we'll save that, and then we'll restart our service. And then just to make sure that we didn't have any errors in our configuration, we'll check our syslog and make sure that everything went through okay. As you can see, the configuration was successfully loaded. Loaded serial 1 will let you know that ubuntu.local, the first edit was loaded. So for example, if we do a host on ubuntu.local, that will give us our IP address of the host that we configured. For example, if you had a web address, or an FTP, you can change these to anything. So if you had a business environment and you had an FTP server on its own IP address, and then the web server on its own IP address, 0.5.99, I mean, it doesn't matter. It'll still resolve the same. And then we'll do a reload. So let's do a host on ftp.ubuntu.local. There it is. So if you did just host on FTP, it doesn't know where it's at. So this is the fully qualified name of the host that you wish to query. So that's pretty much it. This will tell the local. I mean, if you had this on a local server and you did several web page lookups or whatever, you wouldn't have to go out each time and do a query on the internet. So having your own domain server will, I mean, you won't see a huge decrease in load time, but it will certainly help. Also, if you wanted to, you can make a null file. So if you had, and we'll just do a real quick example of that. Nano name.com.local. So if you had a site that you wanted to be blocked, for example, we'll do bad sites. Same thing, type master. We'll do a file as etc db.null. Alright. And then we'll do a copy on, just like we did before. We'll copy db.empty to db.null. So we'll go in here, and then we'll do any record that we point to this file, just to go into empty space. And then we'll just do a tail again, just to make sure that there are no errors. So we did have an error. Let's go in there and figure out what we need to do to fix it. So as you can see, I opened up my file, and instead of doing an A record, I put in a NS record. So we want to change that. And then we'll reload again. We'll make sure that we have no issues. Yep, so it did go ahead and load. So we'll do a host on bad site. There you go. So if you go into your web browser and you have kids or employees that you've had issues with going to certain sites, you can use this as a means to block websites. So it can be handy that way. So you can do a ping on. Obviously, it's really not going to go anywhere locally, but that's what it will do. So there you go. There's your configuration on Bind. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to message me. Thanks for watching.